Thank you. My name is Reid Rutherford. I'm the CEO of Melzi Corporation. As was just mentioned, we are the developer of the Melzi Sharps Finder. Our product was initiated based on a surgery that occurred in the Philadelphia region several years ago. A robotic prostatectomy was done, and the robotic procedure was successful. The patient received the treatment they needed. At the end of the process, though, during the wrap-up of the surgical procedure, the needle actually went rogue. It actually flipped away, and it wasn't immediately obvious. They had to redirect the cameras. Being a robot, it was being operated through a video system. And they went looking for that needle and actually looked for over an hour and could not find it. Surgeons will often describe that process as like it falls into quicksand. The blood is pumping, the body is breathing, things are changing. As a consequence, the needle can get lost and take a while to get lost. In this particular case, the surgery had to be ended because they couldn't keep the patient under. And the end of it, the procedure, the medical practice is that the patient needs to be told, your surgery went fine, everything's great, but oh, by the way, we left a needle in you. And of course, that's not something that's necessarily good news. It's not the worst thing in the world. Scar tissue will form around it, but nevertheless, it's not something that surgeons like to do. And they will go to great lengths to find those needles. It's not uncommon, based on the surveys we've seen, that at least there'll be a number of events that take as much as a half an hour to find, and another 15, 20 minutes even calling for x-ray. The event seems to occur, based on surveys, about 390,000 times a year. In most cases, as I mentioned, that the surgeons will actually locate the needle and retrieve it, and as a consequence, there's no further need to discuss it or disclose it. But in fact, it happens quite a bit, costing a lot in terms of wasted time and procedure in terms of the operating room. Our product was designed to find those lost needles, to save the trouble of having to leave it there and have the problem of telling the patient that we've left a needle in you. In terms of the investment we're looking for, we target a very large market. It's every hospital doing OR surgery, operating room surgery will need a device like this. We treat or suggest that the item is like a fire extinguisher. You don't need it all the time, but when you need it, it's very good to have it available. There's also the savings for the hospital. Operating room costs are in the hundreds of dollars a minute, and therefore, if you can save that time, there's benefits to the institution. And finally, our product is patent protected. We have 2 issued patents, 1 allowed patent, as well as a design patent. The product itself is designed in an ergonomic fashion. It can be used in a right or left hand. It's designed to go through a 5mm trocar, so it's for the modern standard in terms of very small trocars. It's a 45-centimeter shaft. It's useful clearly in laparoscopic and robotic, as well as open surgeries. The way it functions is that there's our magnetometers in the tip. As you can see here, there's magnetometers, and they're basically sniffing or smelling the magnetism that's in the environment. We live in a soup of magnetism. The Earth's magnetic field is strong, electronic equipment producing magnetic signals. The device functions by noticing changes in the magnetic fields in its vicinity. As a consequence, if it's in a patient, it'll be able to identify that it's near metal and near a surgical item such as a needle or a fragment. The product is fully adjustable in the sense it can be increased in sensitivity or reduced. It's designed as a one-time use. It's battery operated. It's available when needed, and then when it's completed, it can be retired. The management team consists of people from Stanford, from MIT, Temple University, Virginia Commonwealth University, and as well as a development team that's been experienced for many, many years. The product is FDA registered. It's already approved for human use. We are actually in hospitals. Current hospitals include the Houston DeBakey Medical Center in Texas, as well as the Hackensack Meridian Center in New Jersey, Yale University, Middlesex Hospital in Connecticut, as well as the hospitals in Temple. And finally, I mentioned Stanford University in Palo Alto. The problem of losing needles, as I mentioned, is significant. About 390,000 sharp objects are lost every year. The cost, if there's a medical malpractice claim that results, typically will cost around $2 million. There's certainly the big cost, and the main thing the surgeons like to avoid is the reputational damage. The patient risk is significant. As was mentioned, the number one, by the Joint Commission, the number one never to occur happen are lost surgical items. And finally, just to mention the time frame, Typically, you might see as much as 70 minutes added to a surgery if there's a lost needle event. The problem is increasing because as we see the rise of laparoscopic and robotic surgery, the lack of tactile response is going down, or the limitation of tactile response. The photograph on the screen shows, actually, this is a human surgery. There's robotic graspers working on a suture needle and suture itself. During this particular process, as the surgeon was trying to disconnect the surgical needle from the suture, the needle flips away. In this particular image, the process actually took 50 minutes to locate the needle. And again, it happened on screen. You could see the needle flying. You would say, just go get it. But in fact, as I mentioned, it took 50 minutes. And this was after an X-ray, which wasn't able to detect the needle. The other point here to be aware of is that in times past, the most significant problem of retained items were the sponges that are used during the surgical process. New technologies, there's an RFID system, there's straps and radio illumination strips that are part of the sponges have made that problem be reduced significantly. And as well, we're now seeing the problem of the sharps, the needles, the metal objects increase. Again, the way that I should mention just some of the features of the product. It detects lost needles with a 95% reliability rate, meaning that if they go hunting, it will detect needles at a 95% reliability. It's capable for use in laparoscopic, robotic, and open surgery. It's indicated for use in gastroenterology and urology, as well as other activities that surgeons might like to use it. It's also being used for miscounts. When a surgery is performed, they count the number of needles going into the process, and then they count the needles coming out. There's a fairly common event where, say, 20 needles go in, 19 are out. The question is, where's that last needle? Is it on the floor? Is it in the patient? We're finding that the product reflects a higher reliability than X-ray in locating those lost needles. And finally, the main point is it's a one-time use product, maintains sterility, and available provides for recurring sales. As I mentioned, the way it works is there are magnetometers in the tip, and they're basically measuring the magnetic fields that are present. And when there's a change in that magnetic field, it detects and makes a signal, both lights a light as well as signals with a buzzer. So the surgeon operating the unit was able to identify that a needle is in the vicinity of where the sensor is. In terms of our commercial rollout, we have, as mentioned, already achieved FDA registration. It's approved for human use. We've done a limited clinical rollout where we're putting the product out in the marketplace to get feedback from surgeons and our operating room staff as to how well it works. We're doing work with conferences and shows to basically alert the markets as to the availability of the product. We're looking to start an aggressive national rollout, expand our distributor network, and continue to be presenting the unit to conferences and others. Our plan for exit is that basically, as we have the launch of the product becomes successful, and we're increasing sales and demonstrating the market acceptance for the product, we expect that this product really belongs in the catalog of a global device supplier. It's with a significant hospital presence. We've had some interest there, and we expect that to increase over the next months. And we're also looking at regional licensing distributor arrangements for that. Thank you very much. If any interest further on this, I'll be available in the conference room next door. Thank you.